Okay, welcome to chapter 11. 11. So another l'chaim for a new chapter. Okay. Remember, going back to chapter 5 and 6, everything in the world is balanced, right? Everything that is good, on the other hand, there's bad. So in chapter 1, we learned there are 5 types of people. 2 types of tzaddikim, 2 types of Rishonim, and the Beinoni. Now, and we asked the question, what does it mean? What does it mean a Beinoni? What does it mean a tzaddik? What does it mean a rasha? So we said a tzaddik is not somebody who does mostly mitzvahs, and a Beinoni is not somebody who does 50-50, because the moment you do one of air, you call a rasha. So then we started saying, no. Really, every person is made up of 2 separate consciousness. Totally separate consciousness. You have the godly consciousness, chapter 2 we learned about, and the godly consciousness is trying to be express.
Building D.
I gotta stop that. The soul expression, the thought, speech, and action we learned in chapter 4 should be the soul expression of the godly soul. The problem is that there's an animal soul. And the animal soul also wants a soul expression to be in thought, speech, and action. And this is the fight. In chapter 9, we learned, and he called them 2 kings, Alter Rebbe. And the king wants absolute authority, because if you don't have absolute authority, you're not the king. So the animal soul doesn't say, listen, you take the head and the hands. I'll take the stomach. No, it doesn't work that way. So that's why you can't feel godly and worldly at the same time. You can't. Either you're pigging out or you're not, right? So this is what happens. So then you have the animal soul. The animal soul thirsts for material things. So in chapter 10 we spoke about the tzaddik who's not confronted by any impulse, and he's totally turned over that impulse of bad. Now some totally squashed it, and they could have a vestige, but not threatened by it, and totally. Now, in chapter 11, now we discuss the rasha. Now, what does a rasha mean? When you say rasha, how do you find the word rasha? Evil, right? Bad guy. So in the Gemara, Haman a rasha, Esav a rasha, right? Parez a rasha. But in the Tanya, that's not a rasha. Obviously, they're rasha. But we're talking about Yidden over here. We're Jewish people. What does it mean a rasha? A rasha is somebody who violates God's will.
Is Lavan a rasha?
Who?
Lavan?
For sure. Okay. Actually, it's called Lavan a rasha too. I think in the Haggadah we call him Lavan a rasha. No?
I know. I thought Lavan a Ramai.
Ramai. Well, if you cheat and lie, you're.
But it's funny. He comes from the Haramains, the Aram.
Right. It's true. Aram. Yeah. Ramai. Yeah.
Yeah, but he ruined the name for the whole rest of them.
So
it's called Rasha.
Korach, yeah, you rebelled against God. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh
yeah, they were. They were. Sure.
Yeah. So I wonder what I'm gonna look it up.
Again, but let me give you good news and bad news.
Uh-oh.
The bad news is we're all Rishonim. Because of Russia means you violate God's will.
Yeah.
So let me use a less offensive words, or more offensive. We're all criminals. You ever jaywalk? You ever cross the street in the middle of the street? You're a criminal. It's against the law, do you not? You're a criminal.
Depends whose law, though.
What do you mean? The law of the land is a law. What do you mean? So if the law of the United States says you have to cross by a crosswalk, you have to cross by a crosswalk. You're a criminal. Then does that mean we're going to throw you in prison? And obviously not. This isn't Singapore. You know what I'm saying? But Russia means a person violated God's will. It could be the smallest thing. Now, the difference between one Russia and another Russia is what it takes to rectify it. So most of us are going to identify with this chapter right here. You can say, finally, Alter was talking to me.
Rasha, exactly.
No, but the problem is Alter Rebbe doesn't stop here. Alter Rebbe says, but that's not what I want from you. Chapter 12, Alter Rebbe is going to say, no, but after that, you can be better. So chapter 11. Zeh l'uma zeh, and one opposite the other. Rasha v'tevloi l'uma tzadik v'rali. In the end of chapter 10, or in the middle of chapter 10, we spoke about the tzaddik who has bad to him. What does that mean? He's a tzaddik, but the evil of the world is not totally transformed. He still has some element that they might have an infinity, or he doesn't have absolute disgust. Now, what does it mean that Rasha has good to him? So in the Gemara, it talks about a Rasha that enjoys life. So in that way, you look at it as the worst Rasha, because we have a tradition that God lets the worst people enjoy here. So in the next world, they'll get what's coming to them. But here it talks about it a little different. Rasha, what does it mean, Rasha v'toivlei? That means he's a Rasha, but the toiv, the good, is close to him. That means he's not a bad guy. He can't control his. Sometimes when the Yitzhara comes, he can't control. So if I would ask you, are you a bad guy? I'm sure most of you would say no, right? Do you do things wrong? Yes, sometimes I do things wrong. What happens? The Yitzhara, basically, the answer is the Yitzhara comes, and then tricks me, fools me, overcomes me, and afterwards I feel bad. That's the definition of a Rasha v'tevlei.
Or eating McDonald's.
No, that's not.
I'm just giving an example.
Kosher McDonald's,
Yeah,
obviously.
exactly.
Right.
But even after that, you feel bad.
I saw a video, by the way. I think I said in this previous video or something. I saw a video. A lady kept a hamburger from McDonald's from 1996 or something.
That's crazy. Yeah.
She kept it in a shoebox.
Museum now.
Oh, is it? She kept it in a shoebox. I don't know when this video is from, but I think it was like 20 years later. And the hamburger meat, there's no mold in it, and the bread is perfect, and the fries.
Excellent.
It was wrapped up in paper in a shoebox. I mean,
I
it's
think I saw that.
yeah, it's crazy, right?
Wild.
I mean, if you have an overcoming urge for McDonald's, something's wrong with you. But
Oh no.
no, I don't mean you. I mean, you need to be educated. Let me teach you how to sin.
Yeah.
You're gonna sin, So let's continue. 161 in the 165 in the new. The Hainu, what does that mean? Sha'toiv shebenefesh elakis, the good of a godly soul, shebemeichav v'chol yamin shel liboy, and in the right ventricle, because remember we learned in chapter 9 or chapter 8 or 9 that the godly soul doesn't solely dwell in the brain. It also has to have impact on the emotion. So it dwells a little bit in the heart. In the words of the Alter Rebbe, in the right ventricle of the heart. Kafuf is subservient, uvatal and nullified lagabe ra, compared. So he does have good, but it's subservient. That means many more times than not, the bad is going to overcome. So he has his whole conscience problem. He does something bad, but he feels bad. And just like the tzaddik v'rali, a tzaddik who has evil, is subdivided into a million categories. So too the Rasha v'toivlei mischalik is subdivided. Into the myriad of degrees. You have some people who feel bad over a bunch of stuff. You have some bad who's feel bad over very few things. It all depends on chalukas beinian kamos ve'echas. The difference between the myriad levels are quantity, the extent, or the quality. Bittul v'kfifas v'toivlei ra chas v'shalom, the nullification of the good tidiv, God forbid. So let's learn the note over here in the bottom, because we have to. What does it mean? Quantitative difference and qualitative difference. Quantitative difference between one Rasha and another, who knows good, is indicated by whether the good is merely outweighed by the majority of evil, or whether the evil says 60 times the good. What does that mean? It could be the guy has a lot of good, but just he has more evil. So the good is going to have. So let's say, for example, he has a lot of good, but just the majority, so to speak. Let's say in Senate you have 60 votes, right? And another one is 51 votes. The other one's 49. So the 49 has a major voice. Yeah, it doesn't have the final say, but it's different when it's like 90 to 10. Right? So it's all the difference of how much good, how much does the good in you have a voice? How much struggle do you have before doing something bad? Again, I'm not talking you in Talking to the people on the other guy, right? How much struggle do you have? If you have a lot of struggle and then you give in, then you know your good you have a lot of good in you. If there's hardly any struggle, then you know the good is very little. The quantitative classification hinges on what aspect of the divine soul is subservient. In one Russia's divine soul, the holy capacity for affection may be subservient to the animal's affection for forbidden matters, while another, it might be different. So, for example, let's say you might have something, an affection, attraction for one aver. For me, it's not the same aver. Right? Many times you might say, how come this guy that can't eat McDonald's? How come he's eating McDonald's? I would never do such a thing. I think I once told the story. A guy who used to come to shul. Used to come to shul with he doesn't live here anymore. With shorts and a tank top. And on Friday night, come to shul. I didn't say anything because Chabad, we welcome everybody. One day, a guy walked in on Friday night. He was using his phone in shul. He came over to me, Rabbi, what a chutzpah! The guy comes into shul and uses his phone on Shabbos in the shul. I'm like, you decided one, because for you, using the phone. But him, he came dressed nice. But okay, he didn't know, whatever. He's using. We all have our own Yetzer Hara. We all have our sin. That we have
where we fall.
Our affection to our Yetzer Hara pulls. So everyone's different. Everyone's Yetzer Hara is different. But we all fall under the category of Russia V'Tevli, meaning that the evil is more powerful than the good. That, by the way, it doesn't mean always. It doesn't mean you can't do anything good. It doesn't mean you're absolute evil. It means on a general day, it means your evil has a very, very strong voice.
Is it true that the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara that keeps attacking you, is the tikkun that you're meant to do in this world?
So, in other words, yes. In other words, find the mitzvah.
And also find the
mitzvah. Or find the mitzvah that's the hardest for you to do.
The hardest for you.
The hardest? That's because everyone has their specific mitzvah they have to do. Everyone has to do all the mitzvot, but there's one specific act. Find it, because that's where Yetzer Hara's job is to stop you from doing your mission in the world. Yeah, and that's why some people have a hard time, and some people, and you're like thinking, why is it difficult for you? I remember I once told a story. I'm one of the smallest ones in my family. I'm not the skinniest guy, but I have a brother.
Yes, everyone takes your sandwich.
No, same brother, by the way. Same brother, but different story.
Different mother.
Different story. So he suffers with weight. So I once asked him. I said, I don't understand. So stop eating. I didn't mean it in a condescending way. I said, I don't get it. So he says, Mordechai, let me explain to you something. I'm having a bowl of cereal. All right, what happened in eating a bowl of cereal? There's some milk left in the bowl. So what do? You pour more cereal. And then you add a milk. So you pour more milk. And then you add a cereal, right?
Really? That's a solution to things like that?
No, I said, but eventually, you run out of milk. No, I go to the garage and get a bottle.
Eventually, you run out of cereal.
Right, but then I realized there's nothing in his head that's telling him stop. And I realized, to me, thank God, I don't have that issue. In his head, there's nothing telling him to stop. For other people, when you're full, you stop eating. That's it, done. So, same thing with sin. Sometimes we see a person sin. Look, I don't understand. What kind of garbage is that? Why does the guy do that? Why can't you just A, B, and C? Or how come he doesn't? Because they don't have their Yetzer Hara. We have everyone has their own Yetzer Hara, but we all fall under the category. And the guy could look at us and say, "What a piece of garbage!" Right? So he says, "Yesh mi shakfif abitul etle miat bezer." There's some who the subservient to nullification to good is minor. That means mostly he's 98 or 49% he's good, right? Or 40, or I shouldn't say that. Or the evil is overpowers only slightly.
Last row in heaven.
Yeah, exactly. The gam zays in between us, and even this guy, because we're going to learn. We learned this already. What evil means, you allow the Yetzer Hara to find expression in thought, speech, or action. Many times we get caught in action. Thinking something you're not supposed to is also wrong. If a person thinks there's something they're not supposed to, they're called a rasha. Because you allowed your evil inclination to take control. And even if it's 5 seconds, doesn't make a difference. I know we're setting standards here. That's why I told you we'd identify with this chapter. So a Beinoni is somebody who doesn't allow his evil inclination to find expression ever. So a tzaddik to us is forget about it. He's on a different, he's
You're not a tzaddik, you're not a tzaddik, right?
Right, exactly.
You can become a tzaddik.
Exactly. The Alter Rebbe is going to talk about that in chapter 18 or something, I think, where he says, where sometimes the Beinoni gets frustrated. Like, how come I'm having impulses? Alter Rebbe says, well, why not? You're normal. A tzaddik is not normal. You can't, it's almost like wishing you can fly. It's not an attainable goal. But Beinoni is attainable. Now, it's hard. Because you have to be in absolute control of yourself all the time. So the reason why I said chapter 11 speaks to most people, because you say, well, that sounds like me. I'm a pretty much nice guy. I'm a normal guy usually. Okay, once in a while, I curse a guy out, you know what I'm saying? Or, I eat something, I look at something, I think something I shouldn't. I'm still a nice guy. Yeah, you're a nice guy. But you still rush up that way. Why? Because you allowed the evil inclination to find expression. That's what it comes down to. And it could be that way that it doesn't happen often. And it could be only infrequent occasions the evil overcomes the bad. The evil overcomes the good, sorry. The chayvish is the ir katana, he'll go and conquers conquers your small body. It conquers your body. The small city. But as long as you haven't done teshuvah for that, you haven't rectified, so at that moment in time, you're a rasha. You can't just, but everything has consequences. That's the bad news. Good news too. When you do something good, it has consequences. Nothing. When you do a mitzvah, no one can take that away from you. You've done the mitzvah. If God forbid, a person does an aver, the aver stands, unless you do teshuvah. That's the beautiful thing. There's no undoing a mitzvah, but there is undoing an aver. That's the good news. Furthermore, the evil doesn't conquer the body, only one part of it, right? He only thinks something, when he says something, subjecting it to his discipline and you becoming a chariot to evil. And allowing the evil inclination or the animal soul to be garbed in one of the 3 garments, namely thought, speech, and action. The hainu is b'maisel levad, lasis laveres kalis. Indeed, alone to do with a small transgression, not a major one. Or only in speech. The daber avik lashon hara, like you know what avak lashon hara means? No, avak. It's lashon hara, and then it's avak lashon hara. So there's a story actually. No, it's not mentioned here. It's mentioned somewhere else. Where the son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Shimon, someone did something. Someone said something, and he said it wasn't me. It was Shimon. It was a tailor, and it wasn't bad or something. And Rabbi said, stay away from lashon hara. I think he talks about this. It says avak lashon hara means you're not actually speaking lashon hara. It's only in the borders. Avak means dust. Yeah. It's the edges, right? Or litzanis, or some garbage, you're not or scoffing, kai gavna, or you're thinking something you shouldn't. And sometimes, by the way, thinking is worse than doing, because when you're thinking something, you transport yourself. The Baal Shem Tov once said, "You are wherever you put yourself." Even if you're not thinking in Avera, only thinking about and contemplation about men and women, and because it's interesting, Alter is discussing this, because this is one thing. When you say something nasty, everyone says it's an Avera. When you do something wrong, it's an Avera. But I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me thinking? Right? But Alter says not thinking is wrong. Thinking is an action. That's the difference we're going to actually talk about in chapter 12 as well. The difference between thought and thinking.
I remember I've gone through the Tanya before, and I
Yeah.
remember this section where dealing with the thoughts that occur that you don't want to happen, and they still occur to you, and the means by which the techniques that he provides to
Yeah. Next
to
chapter.
move ahead, to stop, to acknowledge the thoughts and acknowledge that it's not you that's really bringing them about, because there's a difference between thinking about them in pleasure and just
Right.
fantasizing about what you shouldn't.
So that's gonna be chapter 12 and 13.
Yeah, I remember.
But the difference between the thought and thinking. So here he's dwelling on it, and it's wrong because the Torah says, "V'nishmart mekol davar ra." You have to keep yourself from every wicked thing. Shaloi lahar b'yom. So a person must not harbor impure thoughts by day, and then at night, then the night becomes. And then let's say, for example, he's not thinking anything wrong, and he's not saying anything wrong. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just, just chilling, having a bud.
Corona.
Yeah, having a corona. Sorry, right? We ever since the Dylan Mulvaney thing, we don't do
Who?
both. Sorry. Exactly.
Her name is Jessica.
Oh, sorry. Right.
It's Mel.
Aye. Or for example, continue Shaya Shasa Kush Lasak or you had a chance to learn Torah, but finally love it all, and the person made a choice to do something else. Because we learn in Perkei Avot, Haneir B'Laila, so it awakens at night, and finally, and he turns away his heart. He says he's guilty against his soul. And most of these things we can say, I'm not really doing anything wrong. What am I doing? I'm just, I'm doing nothing. Nikra Rasha Beisahi. It's called a Rasha, an evil person again. Wicked person is a violator of God's commandment. If God gave you a job to do and you don't do it, you're a violator. Or in other words, a wicked. What happened in that?
Maybe you're weaker than your negative inclinations. Maybe you're just inherently you're emotionally in a state where standing up for certain things is not a priority. Does that still define you as a violator?
So,
a wicked person?
So let me take your words. Priority. How can it not be a priority? What does that mean it's not a priority?
Do you understand what people are going through in their life when just being just existing in regret and in shame and the frustrations of failure in life? Are you if it's a drug habit and they just are too weak then they succumb to it?
So you're getting into specifics. But I'll answer general terms. So this is a line from the Gemara that says, Hashem does not come to overburden a person. There is no challenge God gives that a person can overcome. That being said, that's general. That being said, yeah, there are people that go through.
That being said, there's reality to address, and this is
that is the reality. That is the reality. But I will say, when you do a mitzvah, you've accomplished something. The problem with frustration and everything else is the idea that you can't do anything. But when you get up and you put on tefillin or you give tzedakah, you've accomplished something.
You think that someone that bears the shame of knowing they're failing at being the person that they should be, but they can't.
See, but that's the beauty. That's the beauty of Torah. God's
Is
not
that person is sinful? Is that a rasha?
No, but you're getting too broad here.
I'm being very general to
but I'm saying, but that's the beauty.
An average person on planet Earth.
But if you woke up, right, and let's say, I don't know, you're making $35,000 instead of your dream to make 150, whatever it is. If you consider yourself a failure, a businessman, father, I don't know, whatever the failure means, and define it.
No, sin, committing sin, going against what you know God wants you to do.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. But let's say you make a choice to put on the phone. What are you at that moment when you put on the phone?
You're doing a mitzvah.
Well, what are you then? Are you a Russia then? No.
You are.
No, you're not.
Why not?
Because you're right now connected to God. When you're doing a mitzvah, when you still have to rectify the past. But you're not a failure. Meaning
this person is also acknowledging that in the future they will most likely also commit more.
But that doesn't work that way. We look at time as individual moments.
Okay,
We look at life and we look at the Torah as individual mitzvahs.
I accept that.
Right now, what you're doing is a mitzvah.
The
I take it. So right now,
transgressions are within that moment.
yeah.
Okay.
So now, obviously, because it's a one story, so you have to rectify the past. That's true. And Alter is going to talk about some people say, okay, now I'm a good guy. No, you have to revisit those failures of the past. That's true. But when you make the right choice right now, that's a victory. You're not a
doing
failure.
the mitzvah of going to Shur Torah right now.
Yeah.
But I'm not making a bracha on my water. Am I a Russia at that moment?
For a Russia, for not making a bracha on the water, yeah, I mean, a Russia means that you didn't, the mitzvah is, the idea is that at that moment, you were doing something good. At that moment, you let your body to be totally overcome. I want the water, not stopping to think. That I have to ask God permission to thank God for the water. So again, you're taking individual moments, and this is really what we get at the next chapter. If you look at life and you start your day as individual moments, individual battles, stop getting overwhelmed by life. One thing at a time, one foot in front of the other. So that's how you are. That's how you are a proper person. One step in front of the other. That's really what it is. So many times we think I can never be because, look, first of all, what I did in the past. That's not. We move forward. Number one, and number two, stop looking at that means I'm never going to sin that for the next 80 years. Right now you're dealing with 9. What is it? Is it 9:25 and 35 seconds? What are you doing right now? That's really Alter Rebbe's method to do it. Doesn't mean that we totally absolve you from the past. Yeah, you'll deal with that. But you can't be so caught up in the past to paralyze the future. Alter is going to talk about that also in the chapter 20s. What happens if you're trying to motivate yourself to do good and you feel tied down, you feel blocked, stuffed, depressed? Alter is going to talk about that.
So there's the movement from being a Rasha and the Tovlo to being a Beinoni.
You can go.
Is
The
just one decision away?
One moment
Yeah.
away.
One moment away?
I think that
Yeah.
Judaism in its core is like techniques and approaches to teach you how to live in the moment. So much so that every step of the way in your life, you acknowledge the moment.
So,
And Tanya is like a hyper-focused, like a PhD in how to exist in the moment and techniques to really like ground you in moments.
we're going to learn in chapter 12 the only difference between the Beinoni and the Rasha V'Tovlo is the implementation. They both have the exact same Yetzer Hara. The Beinoni doesn't listen, and the Rasha does sometimes. The Beinoni will never allow, the way he stands now, he will never allow the Yetzer Hara, or the Nefesh Habahamis, to take control. It will always be a defeated force, a force to contend with. Always a fight, always a war, but it'll never allow him to win. The Rasha does, and as long as he doesn't rectify it, yeah, he's a Rasha for that act. Yeah. Let's finish to the 3 dots over there on the next page. So if anything's these happen, Nikra, Russia, Russia. Yeah, at the bottom of 168. He's called a Russia at that time. Because the evil inside of him overpowered him, prevailed him, and found expression in his body, inducing him to sin and defiling him. And what happens? Because he's not absolute evil, he has good inside of him. So he doesn't keep sinning. He's not sustaining. So now what happens is the godly soul makes a rebound, makes a comeback. Say, hey, what about me? This is not you. You're better than that. What happened? And he feels bad. He says, oh God, forgive me. That wasn't me. Hashem yislach loy, and Hashem forgives him. Why does he forgive him? Because the good inside of you is true, and the regret he feels is real. So what happened? The evil overcame him, but the good inside, the evil is real, and so is the good. So he feels regret because of the godliness inside of him. Im shav b'tshuva haruya pi etzes chachmaynu zechanu v'larcha. And if he does teshuva prescribed by our rabbis, b'shleisha chalukei kapoda, like the three forms of pardon, like it says in Rabbi Shmuel, like it says somewhere else, then he's totally elevated. Now let's look at what are the three methods of teshuva. We'll end off here. Three forms of pardon. A, if someone does transgresses a positive precept, meaning he didn't do it, so, and then he does teshuva, he's pardoned at once. B, this is the Gemara Yuma. If he transgresses a prohibitive, it means he's transgressed and he did what he shouldn't have done, and he repents, then Yom Kippur together with his teshuva atones. And C, if his transgression he does something very serious, carry the penalty of kares, spiritual exposition, or the execution of hands of court, then after having repented and Yom Kippur, he has to suffer the full suffer also that will bring full atonement. However, as the Rebbe notes, the divine pardon elicited by this person's repentance does not change the status of Russia in the true sense of the term, but only in the borrowed sense. Indeed, when weighed on the scales of merit and sin, when a person who sins rarely, only in minor manners, and then repents immediately, when judging between 50 and 51%, he's deemed a tzaddik. But over here, that's the borrowed term. But over here, the Alter Rebbe is talking about in actual terms. As long as a person doesn't rectify the act, he has a status of Russia. So that was tonight was a chapter was about the Russia who knows good. Next week we're going to learn the second half of chapter 11 was a Russia who unfortunately is more consumed by his bad. And that's a guy that has real problems. And then finally chapter 12, the hero or Abok Benoni. Have a good week.